23andMe knows everything about you. And now so does everyone else. Microsoft's Copilot is the turbocharge that Windows OS needs, and SSH is secure. Or at least it used to be. These stories and much more on today's episode of MSP Dispatch.
This episode is presented by OIT VoIP. Enhance your client's communication abilities with our VoIP solution, featuring integrated billing, on-demand training, and live US support. Collaborate seamlessly with Microsoft Teams integration and put your entire phone system in your pocket with Mobile X. Improve your offerings and increase profitability with reliable service for 1/10 of the average MSP acquisition cost. To learn more, visit oit.co or dial 844-CALL-OIT.
Good morning and welcome to January 9th episode of MSP Dispatch, your source for news, community events, and commentary in the MSP channel. My name is Tony Francisco, joined by my friend and co-host, Mr. Tom Lawrence. Tom, how are you doing today?
I am doing wonderful.
This is our first show. Like, we're literally starting off 2024. That's 2024 together. Me and you.
It made me so happy. I was like, they're like, can you do a show? I'm like, is Tony going to be there? I'll start my New Year off right.
Oh, wow. Did you do anything special for New Year's?
I managed to stay up. I'm old enough where I usually fall asleep before New Year's. I managed to stay up past the midnight. These are accomplishments when you're pushing 50.
Oh, wow. I hear you on that. There have been so many years where you're just like, hey, I'm totally going to... And you fall asleep and you're like, oh, man, I'm officially that age. I cannot believe I'm that age.
Yeah, there's some picture of me falling asleep sitting up maybe a couple years ago. I was like, I'm going to make it.
And you remember the, like, so everyone listening to this right now, you've probably met Tom and or I at one of these events, the MSP events. And they're so exciting, and it's a social engagement. It's a social environment, and you're learning stuff in the periphery. But at the end of the day, you are really there to make these contacts, and the connective tissue that you have with others almost gives you like a weird learning by osmosis through all of your peers, and it helps you improve on top of the core pillars of the whatever the tracks are that you're attending. But eventually, you find yourself just sitting there, and eventually you find yourself getting with a picture of you falling asleep on a couch somewhere.
I save it all up for the events, because when I go to these events, I can't remember how late me and you were talking the last time at an event, but it definitely took some winding path of stuff we can't talk about on this show.
No. Okay. So, you know what we can't talk about, though? We can talk about the news. Let's get into the news. Jumping straight into my first story from TechCrunch.com, 23andMe tells victims it's your fault that their data was breached. 23andMe faces quite a bit of backlash for handling a massive data breach affecting 6.9 million users. While admitting the breach, the company has blamed shift on the victims, claiming their negligent password practices were the root cause. As a result, the company is accused of shamelessly evading responsibility by legal representatives of affected users. The breach began with hackers exploiting weak passwords of approximately 14,000 accounts. Then, they could access millions more data through the DNA relatives feature of the platform. Critics argue that 23andMe should have implemented stronger security measures, especially given the sensitive nature of the data they handle. Furthermore, the recent decision to revise its terms of service has attracted criticism, as it appears to restrict the ability of victims to take legal actions collectively. Legal experts are criticizing this action as a manipulative and self-serving move. Tom, I am now going to ask you to unpack this with me. You and I have enough exposure to hacks, exploitations, just blatant, absolute neglect of network material, which of course allows information to be exploited. There are what I consider to be a very wide degree, a gradient of accountability that needs to be applied. In this particular case, what is your thought on this? Because one side, well, you guys didn't set up your password. So why are we, the organization, responsible for you not adhering to the password? The password best practices that address your particular perspective. On the other end of that is, well, why didn't 23andMe, because you're addressing HIPAA compliancy related sensitivity, personal information, why don't they mandate a much more rigid framework for security practices? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, the second part is really simple. It costs money to do all those mandates, and we want a product that is used by general consumers. General consumers don't like the complexity. They're going to reuse the password, as my wife does, all over the place. And just, yeah, even being married to someone who's into cybersecurity, every time she types a password, I'm like, just stop that. There's more entropy in your email. And you have to force it. It's this balance. I'm positive there was a series of, hey, we want to make this service as easy to use as possible. That whole meeting, and then someone in the corner is like, complex passwords. Someone's like, no, end users are going to use this. This isn't even, I can enforce it when people have a basis of their job. Like, to work for me, your password must be this complicated. But to use a service, you want that ease of transaction. What does the customer journey look like? How difficult is it? And if the point where it's so difficult to sign up for a password, they won't get to the point where they do the whole DNA test, that may stop it. Oh, before you do a DNA test, you're going to have 2FA turned on. Oh, I guess I don't need a DNA test that much. And so I think that's where they figured out the balance on there. It's one of those, as expected. This is what the outcome of anyone who works like me and you do in the cybersecurity world and the tech world. Like, yeah, that's what happened. If you didn't force the passwords because you wanted to make it easy for them, this is going to be the outcome of it. I really think they should have done more. I really think they this is expected, but they're not technically wrong. I mean, don't reuse your passwords. There's enough PSAs about this going around every day. Like, we beat it into the end users all day, but the moment they go home and we're not there to police it, and we're not there to enforce it, because my wife, she works in securities for large financial places. She has a very complicated password. That's not how she signs into everything else. Once she's not mandated by work, I've watched her type her passwords.
The cobbler's kids have the worst shoes. I think we all know that expression. Right. And I also think you're hitting on an expression that we've used for probably decades. You have the choice, simplicity or security. Can't have both. You can't have both. And in the genre of the audience, which is consumer level, we need simplicity, which means the sacrifice, of course, is going to be the latter, the security. If we move into that heavy security component, we're going to sacrifice the very audience we are pursuing. So I guess we're looking for something that is a nice resolution to both. And I'm really interested what the end result's going to be. I think that's going to take time and probably a few more lawsuits, which is unfortunate.
Oh, at least a few more. And what we got to figure out what the value of that data is right now. There's not anything where if I gave you a sample of my DNA, you would not be able to get into any of my systems. And you can't clone me. So I don't really know the value. Well, maybe. I don't know yet. I don't think so. But what's the value of that data? Let's figure some of that out. That's been
you're hitting on the right thing, though. If I could get into your system, the one thing I would want is AI, because it would help me get into it. The one thing I don't want is for you to have AI on your end, because it could possibly prevent me. But I think your story is about AI and a system. Talk to me.
Microsoft is ushering in the new year of the AI PC with a major modification to Windows keyboards. Introducing a new Copilot key. Replacing the menu key marks the first significant change in Windows keyboards layout in 30 years. This key is set to debut on various PCs and laptops from Microsoft's partners. The Copilot's key placement is next to the right-hand Alt key. Varies among keyboards, serving as a launch key for Windows Copilot, Windows Search if Copilot isn't available, and it hints at Microsoft's broader plan to integrate AI into Windows systems extensively in 2024. The Copilot key is expected to appear on new Windows 11 PCs from the ecosystem's partners, including upcoming Surface devices, as Microsoft aims for a more personalized, intelligent computing future. All right, what do you think, Tony? Do we need more keys on the keyboard?
Here is all I hear while you're reading the story. I'm reading the little metadata along with the story. All I hear is Microsoft saying, yes, yes, we finally get to put our browser in the operating system. But now it's even better. We don't even get the browser. We get the search engine in there and kick Google out, and we're attacking we're getting the best of both worlds, and we get to put a button on the keyboard that gives us the thing baked into the browser outside of Google, and it's ours. That's all I hear. That's all I hear. Like, because they're winning something from the 90s. They're winning a battle from the 90s where they had to dismantle the browser that was hardwired in the OS. But then, by including other browsers, those browsers got to choose which default operating or search engine was, and Google is clearly the winning choice there. So now they're battling the browser, which is bringing in the competitor in some capacity because they have their own Office and online computing section that Microsoft would really struggle to achieve until the Office 365 family. But not only did they address hey, we're bringing in, frankly, we don't care what browser, but you can choose whatever you want. But they're kicking Google out at the exact same time. And they're creating that de facto hardwired button right on the key. That's all I'm seeing. Maybe I'm seeing this wrong. Tom, what are your thoughts on this?
I think so too. It's revenge of we lost the browser market. We lost the search market. We're going to win the keyboard market. Damn it. It's just... and coming, they already won this. I mean, not a lot of people knew this, but when they found out this was big news, Control-Alt-Shift-L Win key. If you press all those, it'll launch LinkedIn on a Windows computer. I mean, they won that. So now they're getting to modify. They want an actual key because that's a lot of keys I just said. That's a lot. I don't know where my fingers would go for all that. I'm trying to look at the keyboard.
You just made my fingers cramp up when you were saying that. I'm like trying to imagine you're playing Twister with my fingers.
Yeah, they've been embedding things in there secretly. Now they're ready to put a new key on there. It's them doubling down on their AI investment, which completely, they're pumping money into it. They're going to be return on investment. How can you get more in your face to putting it on a key? I just want a clippy key. Do we get a little clippy guy on there?
Oh my gosh. So despite my best efforts, my brain refuses to understand how Google is going to address this. Because as far as I'm concerned, this large language model, just this is a tsunami. It's nonstop. And AI, which is for all intents and purposes, the topical portion of the large language models that are being consumed. I don't understand how Google is really addressing this. I don't see any movement that's substantial. I see Microsoft making huge movement, and by that I mean putting a key on the keyboard. But I feel like every organization now is getting into this, hey, let's slap AI on this in some capacity to turbocharge it. And I feel like the next obvious step is to bake in the hardwired browser, meaning the Copilot, which is the search engine, and it doesn't care the browser, but maybe they'll default it to a browser, but you can put whatever you want in there. It won't matter. That's just a mechanism to deliver the Copilot service on the back end. What are your thoughts on that? Is that that too far down the rabbit hole?
I think the AI hype is finally starting to peak. There was actually a good study of the S&P 500, and we're finally seeing less mentions now in the last quarter of AI in the briefings for the SEC filing. So each quarter it was trending up very hard over the last few years, and we've finally seen it. So it might be coming down a little bit, but Microsoft's got to figure out a way, as I said, to milk it. And the reality is the best thing about Google and where they are with AI is it's so good you don't see it. They're ahead of everybody else, but nobody knows it because they've made it invisible. And that's ultimately what AI should do. It should be such a fluid thing, and you don't realize how much goes into that search engine system until you start digging into the contextually aware search that it does. And you're like, oh, wait, that's AI that's been doing it, and Google's been doing it longer. It just works so well, I didn't know it was AI. It's just search that gives me results. There's a lot of little nuance in there, but I still think there's a lot more coming. But the hype cycle isn't completely over. We're maybe a little bit out of the filings of some of the Fortune 500 companies. They got their AI words in there, but they're going to milk this for a little bit longer, and there's going to be some neat things coming out of it. I'm excited.
Me too. Well, I got another story for you. You ready?
I'm ready.
And let's tack my next story, no pun intended, from bleepingcomputer.com. Nearly 11 million SSH servers are vulnerable to a new Terrapin attack. Originating from Ruhr University, Bochum researchers in Germany, the Terrapin attack exploits SSH protocol affecting clients and servers. Particularly vulnerable are connections using encryption modes like ChaCha20, Poly 1305, or CBC with encrypt then MAC. The attack manipulates sequence numbers during the handshake, compromising channel integrity. While the attacker needs a middle ground position to intercept handshakes, the number of vulnerable servers, 52% of all scanned IPv4 and IPv6 addresses, amplifies the threat's scope. Notably, the US hosts most of these servers, followed by China, Germany, Russia, Singapore, and Japan. While not all servers are at imminent risk, it is important to be aware of potential exploitation. Tom, SSH. I putty into everything, and I've got like a putty, a web-based putty that I use, which is really just deadly because you can put a little container everywhere. But now SSH.
You got to run that.
Is that good?
It's good. You should try it.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God. You.
We're gonna get off topic, but let's talk.
I know
about
Ray. Well, I got this on Amazon, and now but it's like my download. It just goes through the roof. My ISP says, "Listen, you clearly have to stop talking to Tom because you're downloading a lot more really shady stuff. Like we don't know what you're putting together over here." So SSH is huge. And if there are that many vulnerable servers, and we talk about exploits and attack surfaces all the time, now we're talking about the actual protocol that we use for secure connections. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, there's a little bit of good news here. 11 million is actually a small number compared to how many actual SSH servers are exposed on the internet. So it's all about perspectives. It's not a number that's small either. And if they actually found a way in that was more obvious for SSH just to be a more serious threat. It does require adversary in the middle. It does require that you're using the ChaCha Poly and the CBC. These are a series of things that have to be true. By the way, ChaCha Poly is a newer one, and most people are still using older keys. So a lot of people probably, despite the SSH servers having support for it, if no one's updated their keys, have you updated your keys? For example, are you using that key cipher with yours? Because if you generated your keys a while ago and you haven't rolled them and you haven't chose a different way to generate your keys, you're not necessarily vulnerable because the other ciphers aren't necessarily vulnerable. That's why they specifically called out ChaCha Poly. I mean, it's definitely something that needs to be fixed. I love that people are looking at the absolute details of this. Downgrade attacks are awesome. Looking at the sequence numbers, how do we get a downgrade attack? How do we get in there? But it does require them to be able to manipulate that TCP session. That is a big prerequisite that shouldn't be overlooked. But if it was worse than that, we wouldn't. Well, this would be offline, and so would most of the internet. Because if they find a big hole with SSH that just allows full RCA, we're going to have a few days off because it's just going to.
You're hitting on something that's beautiful. So the ChaCha Poly encryption method. Do you believe that should be rotated on a specific schedule? Is it something that should be rotated based on the newer processes? What are your personal practices?
I do update my keys from time to time. I roll them. I need a better, more automated way to do this. I'm working on an Ansible system to do it because my friend does it in the most beautiful way with all of his servers with Ansible. He's about to start doing an entire nice public write-up on it that I'll be talking about of managing these at scale. Of course, to go further, if you want to do this in the most modern methodology, you would be doing keys and certificates. You can do SSH with a certificate system. That is, there's a really good book on this topic called SSH Mastery. I believe there's a whole chapter on there. There's a lot of fun things you can do. But just to get to the basics of it, yeah, you should at least have some. When I go through and at one point re-rolled all my ciphers to a new one, it's probably not a bad thing in case I don't know, but maybe my keys got out somewhere and they're just waiting for the day they want to strike, waiting to find that I'm hanging out with Tony in Florida and they're like, hey, Tom's not around. We seen him post a selfie somewhere. Now this time to strike. So if I would have rolled my keys before I left for Florida, they go, oh, those keys are all been invalidated. So it's not a bad practice to do that once in a while, but it becomes a big topic because you got to make sure that these matching public key is in all the servers where they're supposed to be. If not, you're going to roll your keys and lock yourself out. And yes, I've had to recover people who've done that.
Oh.
Those stories that I was in the process of rolling my keys, I have no more access to my AWS infrastructure.
Oh, no.
That did happen.
Oh, that's terrifying. Maybe that's something we should talk about at a later time. We've got a lot of other notable mentions we'll jump into, but I would love to talk about, you mentioned Ansible, that's the go-to. It's a solid one. Key storage mechanisms, key rotation processes, best practices, and automation, and frankly, what the repercussions are. I would love to talk about that at a later time.
It's a good topic.
Very much. But until then, let's talk about notables. And dialing into my first story, and no pun intended, from ArsTechnica.com, Starlink launches first cell phone towers in space for use with LTE phones. Starlink has launched the first 6 Starlink satellites designed to act as cell phone towers in space, enhancing cellular connectivity for T-Mobile and other carriers. Without specialized hardware, these advanced satellites offer texting, calling, and browsing capabilities, while SpaceX CEO Elon Musk touts the solution as a game changer for remote locations. He acknowledges bandwidth limitations compared to terrestrial networks. The collaboration between SpaceX and T-Mobile aims to address the connectivity gaps in areas unreachable by traditional networks, the field testing slated to begin soon. Plans include expanding the service to support data, voice, and Internet of Things IoT devices by 2025. In my second notable mention from bleepingcomputer.com, CISA warns of actively exploited bugs in Chrome and Excel parsing libraries. The U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, that's CISA, has highlighted 2 critical vulnerabilities in Google Chrome and the spreadsheet Parse Excel Perl library. Tracked as CVE 2023-7024 and CVE 2023-7101. These flaws require immediate attention, with CISA mandating federal agencies to address them by January 23rd. Chinese hackers have already exploited the vulnerability in spreadsheet Parse Excel, which is used for Excel file operations targeting Barracuda ESG and deploying CSpy and saltwater malware. Meanwhile, the Google Chrome vulnerability, a heap buffer overflow in WebRTC, was addressed in an emergency update, marking the 8th zero-day flaw fixed in Chrome for 2023.
And for my notable mentions, Google has initiated the process of disabling third-party cookies for Chrome users, starting with 1% globally, equating to 30 million users. This move, part of Google's Privacy Sandbox projects, aims to enhance users' browsing privacy. In the initial phase, users will receive notifications introducing tracking protection, which limits third-party cookie tracking on websites. Furthermore, Google offers a temporary re-enable option via browser bar icon to mitigate potential disruptions. By replacing cookies with a system categorizer user interests based on browsing activities, Privacy Sandbox aims for less intrusive ad targeting. Despite facing a regulatory scrutiny, Google plans for a full rollout by mid-2024, transitioning all Chrome users to this privacy-centric approach. And for my next notable mention, in 2023, hackers affiliated with North Korea stole $600 million worth of cryptocurrency, almost a third of all crypto funds stolen worldwide. Despite a 30% decrease from their 2022 haul of $850 million, the DPRK-led attacks remain notably damaging than others. Such cybersecurity intrusions targeting crypto companies since 2017 have netted North Korea approximately $3 billion. These illicit activities serve as a vital revenue stream for the nation, aiding in its weapons and missile programs. Utilizing social engineering tactics, hackers compromise digital wallets security, manipulating private keys and seed phrases to transfer assets covertly. Despite regulatory efforts, North Korea hackers persist, highlighting the need for stronger cybersecurity measures and sanctions.
And in our resource of the week, what's new in Microsoft 365 from T-365.com. Microsoft 365 is rolling out several updates, including the ability to archive channels and teams, enhance data security during meetings, and introduce new analytics tools. Archiving media allows for preserving content without active engagement. At the same time, a new meeting policy prevents chat copying or forwarding, strengthening data protection. Additionally, the Team Admin Center will soon offer external access analytics, offering insights into cross-tenant collaboration. The update also improves audio and video management during Teams meetings, simplifying device controls and settings adjustments. For more information, check out the link in the show notes.
There are plenty of amazing upcoming events taking place across the community, so let's see what's happening this week. Starting today through the 12th, an in-person event, Code Mash in Sandusky, Ohio. And also starting today at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, Tradecraft Tuesday presented by Huntress. And on Thursday, January 11th, another in-person event, Producers Club Q1 presented by Technology Marketing Toolkit. And coming from the MSP Media Network this week, we have, in case you missed it, there was a new episode of 38 at 38 featuring our producer, editor, and host, Phil Buck. And then tomorrow, Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, AI Roundup is back for episode 52 with a juicy story all about Midjourney and a spreadsheet of 16,000 artists they're going to profile. And then finally on Friday, the 12th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, MSP Community Live, episode 21. Are you engrossed by the intriguing world of AI? Do you find yourself relying more on ChatGPT every day? Are you fascinated by creating visuals with Midjourney or Stable Diffusion? Or could it be you're contemplating the deep-seated implications AI has for your professional field? If you're struggling to keep abreast of all the AI developments, don't worry. I'm Phil Buck, the host of AI Roundup, a weekly digest of all things AI. Make sure to check in every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern for a concise roundup of the most captivating AI news right here on the MSP Media Network.
So how'd you like today's show? If you like it, please hit that thumbs up button. If you didn't, go ahead and hit it twice, an odd number.
Gotta hit an odd number of times.
Yeah, exactly. And if you want to hear more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button on YouTube or your favorite podcatcher. Did you know that we also have a Discord where all the stories are posted all week long? You can even propose your own stories and even vote on which stories we will cover. As Ray's friend, and also my friend, I think everyone's friend, Rich Benke says, make sure you tell a friend about us. Also, be sure to follow us on social media at MSP Media TV. If you have any questions, email us at news@mspmedia.tv for answers on the next episode, or just leave us a voicemail at 833-MSP-NETWORK. Tom, I am so excited. We got to start the year off together. Yes. We talked about exploitations, attack surfaces, AI coming into Microsoft on this side, companies continuing the amazing pursuit of not being accountable or pushing off that accountability to others. Tell me, what are your thoughts? Let's wrap this up. Do you have anything you want to close out the show with?
I have a question because you brought up Starlink. What percentage of active track satellites out there, all the satellites orbiting Earth, what percentage of them you think are owned by Starlink? We're talking all the satellites that governments and everyone, Russia, US, everyone's thrown up there. What percentage of them are Starlink?
That is an excellent question. Now I am sandbagging a little bit because if for those of you who listen to the Sean Carroll's Mindscape podcast, absolutely love this. Do you ever listen to Sean Carroll? Anyway, absolutely one of the best podcasts I've ever listened to, and I'm very consistently listening to it. But if you have a problem going to sleep, that is the podcast you listen to. Sean Carroll's Mindscape. Trust me. But they had a guest on there that talked about how the amount of satellites were being implemented is growing exponentially, and
Yes.
It's going out. And Starlink was not doing it slowly. But I don't know the number. But I was going to say, it's got to be like this much. But what is the actual answer?
It's over 50% now, as of January 2024. Yeah,
That
50%.
is not the number I expected.
One private company. One private company has over 50% of the satellites orbiting the Earth, active satellites orbiting Earth right now. That's more. That one private company has more satellites than the U.S., Russia, China. Think about that. It's an interesting thing to think about.
That is. We close out the show, and somehow you reinitiate my neurotic paranoia, which is no longer ambient. It's very active now. But thank you. With that, everyone, thank you so much for listening. An incredible show as always. Tom, I am so happy you were here. I can't wait to the next show. Y'all, take care, everyone.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.
As a result, the company is accused of shamelessly evading responsibility by legal representation. Fuck me. One more time. Legal extra. This is just going to be a patchwork of.